Have you ever felt like life was slipping through your fingers? Like no matter what you tried, you were always falling short. As if there was always something hanging over your head. Maybe money, maybe school, or expectations. And you didn't even know where to start. Every day feeling like you were trapped between who you are and who you are supposed to be. Then at night, you sit alone on your bed, knowing exactly what you wanted, but always feeling like you are 1,000 miles away from it. That was me. And if that's you too, let's talk for a minute. Hello again, my name is Mohammed. I am an immigrant and a social work technician in Canada. I've been living here for the last 7, almost 8 years, and one thing that has been a constant throughout my time here has been anxiety. In this video, I want to share my journey with anxiety as well as some insights that helped me manage it. So let's hop into it. For the past few years, I've really struggled with anxiety, especially in my beginnings. As an immigrant in Canada, the pressure to succeed, to achieve financial freedom, to build a life from scratch, it's been overwhelming. There were times I felt stuck, like no matter what I did, I wasn't moving forward. And I made a lot of mistakes. I tried things that didn't work out. I went into debt. And sometimes I would feel like I was drowning with all the pressure. Now, what happens when you are anxious is that you often isolate yourself and you think a lot. So you get stuck in this loop, and that's actually what leads to depression. But for me, what happened was a friend of mine came over. One day he just showed up and we sat in my bedroom and we just talked. We talked for hours and we shared our struggles, talked about school, talked about our anxieties, talked about home, and gave each other some advice. And it wasn't some life-changing advice. It was just each other sharing our perspective and trying to learn from each other. Now, at that point, just by him coming over and being there and just us talking, it helped in a way I wouldn't be able to explain. And that leads me to my first point, which is when you are struggling with anxiety, seek help and accept help. So after that visit from my friend, what I did was I went to counseling. I went and tried to get another perspective on my struggles. I met with a social worker, explained my worries and all that. What she did is she was able to give me clarity. First, I felt heard, and I was able to make a plan to I was able to have a clear plan of action which brought some clarity on my life. Now, when I say ask for help, please you have to first, I've always been someone who's always struggled with asking for help. I always thought that I had to carry every burden and responsibilities on my own. And what I had to realize, two things. First, asking for help doesn't mean you are weak. And it's like Les Brown said, ask for help not because you are weak, but because you want to remain strong. The second thing is that help doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes all it takes is just to talk to a friend and let them know you are not okay. Second point. After I started asking for help, I had to realize something else. Anxiety often comes from a feeling that we are stuck in a situation we can't control. And that's how I felt most of the time. Like, no matter what I did, I wasn't in control of my future. Then one thing hit me. Well, it actually hit me because of a quote I read. What hit me was, when you lose control over outside events, like when you don't have control over outside events, your last freedom is on the inside, meaning on how you choose to perceive things, how you choose to see things. So the quote that actually helped me realize that comes from, well, it's a quote from Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. And he said, "We have power over our minds and not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Now, that quote actually saved a man's life. Have you ever heard of James Bond? Not the spy, but Admiral James Bond Stockdale. Now, that man, Admiral Stockdale, he was a US officer during the Vietnam War. One day, during an expedition, he parachuted into enemy territory and he was captured. And from that point, for more than 7 years, he was tortured, isolated, and he didn't have any idea if he will ever make it out. But instead of breaking, Admiral Stockdale became a leader for the other prisoners from the camp he was in. And when he went back to US territory, he said that the thing that really helped him through those hard times was his learnings of philosophy, and particularly his Stoic learnings from the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He said that he had read his book Meditation, which is a compilation of his thoughts and learnings throughout his life. And one thing he will always repeat to himself was that quote: "You have power over your mind and not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." What stands out in that story is that Amir Stockdale didn't pretend as if everything was okay, or as if things weren't as bad as they seemed. On the contrary, he accepted it. He accepted his reality and tried to keep control over his thoughts, as Marcus Aurelius taught. And that's what it taught me too. People often misunderstand Stoicism as avoidance, being heartless, and being without emotion. But it's the contrary, actually. What it teaches is just to accept your current reality. Well, that idea of Stoic acceptance today is the basis of a tool we use in therapy and consultations called CBT, Cognitivo Behavioral Therapy. Now, CBT often uses triangle to show the interaction between the thought, the emotion, and the actions. So your thoughts dictates your emotions. Then your emotions influence your actions. Your actions repeated becomes a behavior, and those behaviors reinforces your thoughts. So let's say I have an upcoming exam, and maybe I have studied enough for the exam, maybe I haven't. But either way, the exam is coming up in 2 weeks. And now I have this thought that maybe I won't be able to get good grades on the exam, or maybe I will fail the exam. Then the thought of you failing the exam is gonna feed the emotion of anxiety. So you're gonna be more anxious about the exam. The more anxious you are about the exam, the more you are likely to procrastinate. So it's not a given that you will procrastinate, but you are more likely to it. As I said, the emotion influences the action. So you might still study more, or you might procrastinate. But then, if you procrastinate, or if you don't give it your all because of the anxiety, you won't be able to study as well as you should have, or as well as you could have. Then the result is going to be you get a low grade, or you fail the exam, and that is just going to reinforce the negative thought. So that's the first part of CBT, which explains the basis of it. Then the second part is how you're gonna change that. So the process, which is also inspired by Stoicism, is catch the thought, reframe the thought, and then replace the thought. For the same example, let's say, okay, I have an upcoming exam, and I think I'll fail the exam, or I don't think I'll be able to have a good grade on the exam. Then what you do is that you identify the negative thought you have, and on that example, it's going to be the fact that you think you won't be able to get good grades, or you're gonna fail the exam. So you catch the thought, then you reframe it by saying to yourself, how likely is it that I will fail the exam? Reframing the thought implies making it as realistic as it is. How realistic is your thought to happen? And that also implies, because you see, when you're anxious about something, you tend to undermine the effort you have been making. So you need to reframe the thought by incorporating all the bits of information you've been letting out of it. So have you studied enough during the semester? If yes, add it to your thought. Well, I think I'm gonna fail the exam. Well, have I studied enough? Yes. So if I studied enough, there is a less likely chance that I will fail the exam. Then, have you understood the subject? Well, I fairly understood it. So, well, maybe there are some things that I haven't understood enough. So I'll have to lean more into that. And you add that to your thought. You add it to your new thought pattern. Now that you've got the thought and reframe the thought, the next step is to replace it. And when you replace the thought, you identify what your fear is. So here you fear failing the exam. So when replacing the thought, you'll say, I'm afraid of failing the exam, but I've studied enough during the semester, and I understand a good part of the subject. Now, I know that there are some parts I haven't understood well enough, so I'm gonna lean into that, and you focus on that, and that's gonna create a new action pattern. Now, because you were able to identify where exactly the fear derives from, now you can take action on that. So now you've caught the thought, reframed the thought, and replaced the thought. You were able to identify where the fear came from and identify where you needed to act on. Now, while acting on it, you have to have a plan of action. There is this quote that says, we don't fall to the level of our goal, but we rise to the level of our systems. So you need to have a system. So, for my third point, when you are anxious, you are stuck in a bubble of anxiety, and what I used to do to try to burst that bubble is I will wait for a burst of motivation, then try to get as many achievements as I could, so I will be able to tell myself that I was actually doing something with my life. What I had to understand is that doesn't work. Every time I tried it, I failed. So what I do now instead is I try to take small, deliberate actions, because I found that actions build momentum, and momentum brings clarity. And when you are stuck in a bubble of anxiety, what you need most is clarity. So how do I do that? I think that most of you already heard of SMART goals, which is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Let's say I have this goal of, well, let's do again the example of been applying for whatever, how many job position and so on. It's not working out. So a SMART goal I can do after realizing that okay, this is under my control, this is not under my control, and you decide, okay, what's the next step, like what's the next smallest thing I can do, what is the next small action I can do to get myself in a better position. And you decide that it's maybe learning a new skill, maybe learning a new language, for example. Okay, so the SMART goal you will set for yourself is, I'm gonna learn, let's say, Spanish at the conversational level. And that's the goal. But how do you, that's a specific goal. It's to learn Spanish on a conversational level. Measurable, how it's gonna be measured? Well, the measurability would be that you're improving your vocabulary, you're learning new words, and well, how many words have you learned so far? So specific goal is, okay, learning Spanish on the conversational level. And when you say measurable, when you add the measurable layer, then you change again the goal, and instead of being I'm gonna learn Spanish on the conventional level, it's gonna be I'm gonna word 100 new Spanish words. So that's specific, measurable. Attainable, is it attainable? Yes, it is. Well, I hope, well, I guess we can all learn 100 new words. Well, I haven't yet. Yeah, I'm not good at Spanish. Is it attainable? Then is it relevant? Is it relevant to the job you're applying for? Is it relevant to your expertise or to whatever you are aiming at? Is it relevant to that? If it is, go on. If it's not, change your goal. Time bound. Give yourself a time frame within which you need to achieve said goal. Okay, so you're gonna learn 100 new words of Spanish within 2 weeks, let's say, and that's your goal. You're gonna learn 100 words of Spanish within the next 2 weeks, and you will measure it by actually monitoring how many words you have been learning. You need to set your goals with the idea that you're doing it to first improve your mindset, to bring about clarity, because it needs to be relevant to whatever is making you anxious. And then make sure it's attainable. Don't set overly unrealistic goal. When I came here, my goal was to be not just financially independent. I had the goal of being a millionaire within the next 5 years. I haven't. I failed miserably. Here I am right now. For my final point, let anxiety be a guide. So, the most powerful shift I had to make was that anxiety isn't always to be fought against. I have to realize that anxiety isn't always danger. It's often data. You can use it in a productive way. You weren't anxious about test, you wouldn't study about the test. So if you weren't anxious about a job application, or a presentation, you wouldn't prepare yourself for the application or presentation. So what anxiety is, it's your mind telling you that here is something important to you, so prepare yourself for it. And now when I get anxious about something, I just understand that it's just guidance, guide telling me that I had to ready myself for something important for me. And you don't always have to fight against it. There are times when you don't want anxiety to overpower you. You don't want to put you in that bubble, but you want to use it productively and let it be a guide. Alright, so if you watched to the end, please leave a like, leave a comment. Please let us know how you deal with anxiety. Perhaps someone will see it and benefit from it. So with that said, thanks for watching and see you on the next video.